Okay.
But I could read, I could कुछ जिस तो समझ में आया है.
नहीं, इसीलिए रीड करना है, नहीं समझ में आया तो भी रीड करना है, बिकॉज व्हेन आई विल टॉक देन एवरीथिंग, ऑल द डॉट्स विल कनेक्ट.
Yes, yes.
So please read it. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, okay. So today we will try to cover two case studies. Actually, three, four are there. Small. We will cover Microsoft. We will cover Unilever, and if time permits, even Tesla. So all of them will be revolving around today on the GHG protocol. That how we should use GHG protocol to understand, carbon emission. So module 2 is all about discussing, it's already started. Okay. Discussing about carbon accounting framework, which is in our case, we are going to use greenhouse gas protocol, which was developed by WRI and WSCSD. It's a two NGO bodies, and both of them has developed and later on adopted by world over. However, we will also spend some time, maybe today itself, on understanding ISO framework for carbon accounting, which is ISO 14064. Without further ado, let's start with understanding the, first let me recap to you what all we have covered till now. So module 1 we have completed, and we have completed our 3 critical goals, which was related to fundamental of principal climate change, where we got introduced to climate, weather, pollution, and how they are different from each other, specifically in terms of short-term weather and long-term climate. Then we looked into climate change overview, and finally we looked into greenhouse gases and the climate change and how they are interlinked, by recognizing that carbon dioxide as a primary contributor to the climate change, isn't it? That was our first goal, which we achieved in last couple of days. The second goal we set for ourselves was understanding the basics of greenhouse gas effect, right? So we started with our sixth standard subject, where we looked into how the heats get trapped into atmosphere and why some gases are more important than other in the atmosphere, specifically when we are understanding the greenhouse gas effect, right? And then we define the greenhouse gas effect. Then we looked into 125,000 years of data. Then we also looked into carbon dioxide emission data of 800,000 years, and how our Earth is showing that there is an effect of climate change, like impact on Arctic ice, sea level. We examined the rapid melting of ice, Arctic ice. We saw a few videos there, and we realized that yes, what scientists are claiming is not a fad or a hoax, as Mr. Trump President Trump along with Elon Musk. But actually, it is a reality. And however, Musk, yesterday in night after the class, I was sitting with few of my friends from Grow and Crystal, and both of them, we were debating about it. What will happen after Trump will come in chair in January 22nd. But few people have a different view as well. They think Elon Musk, who is into manufacturing of Tesla motors, and which is a battery, and he's claiming every year $600 million, $600 million in carbon credit every quarter he is getting. So if he is the chief of a staff kind of a position or CEO for Mr. Trump, maybe Trump will be little relaxed on certain items. So let's see how it flows out. But this gave a clarity that there is something which is happening on Earth, and what are the basics of it. We learned that. We also looked into GHG sources, natural as well as human-made, and exactly from where it is coming from. Also, we looked into impact of industrialization in that chapter. Then we went into goal 3 of module 1, where we looked in detail different international regulations and climate agreements. And we also looked into NDC, nationally determined contribution set by each country. What is the basis of it? How the Paris Agreement involves in this. So mostly we have covered the climate change and climate action part. Now we are going to understand the corporate action inside it. So national action we have completed. Now we are going into corporate action, which is our focus, right? Because all of us Either we are consultant or working for a firm or planning to work for a firm which wants to become sustainable. And to become sustainable, the first step is to understand how much of carbon emission they make, right? So today's chapter will focus around, or today's session, module 2, will cover the national framework, international standards, specifically related to greenhouse gas emissions, right? So here emission and emission calculation will be our central theme. And we will look into real world application first, and then we will go into theory part where we will try to learn that how to calculate it. Of course, it will be done in detail in next couple of classes. Minimum, I need at least 3 classes, where 2 classes where I will cover scope 1, 2, and 3. As it is called. But why scope 1 and 2 and 3? We will try to cover it today. So we have again 4 areas of coverage, which we will try to do it in module 2. First is the national and international framework for carbon accounting. We'll try to understand. Second part, we will try to understand specifically the international part of GHG protocol and ISO 14064 in detail. And then we will go into ESG Pro Mastery Institute proprietary 5-step model that you have given any company, any industry, but how to calculate carbon accounting, we have a simple formula. So we will introduce you that approach, and you can apply to any company, any industry, and even on individual, you can apply the same thing. And finally, we will look into some real world example to calculate and how they are calculating their carbon accounting emission. Are we set for the session for today, or any doubt, any question you have in the beginning?
Good.
Okay, great. So if we are set, let's start with understanding the carbon accounting itself. What is it? So first of all, carbon accounting has 3 pillars on which it stands. These, of course, it stands on greenhouse gas emissions. So carbon accounting is a process to measure that. What it measures? It measures the company's greenhouse gas emissions. Fair? So the first pillar is measuring and reporting. That's the carbon accounting. The second pillar is which source it comes from. Is it coming from scope 1, scope 2, or maybe from your value chain, which is scope 3. So either it is coming from direct sources, or it is coming from indirect sources, or indirect sources, but not under your control, but rather with your supplier or your customer's control. Make sense? That is how scope 1, 2, and 3 are defined. Of course, you need not to know now. I will have a detailed understanding of the same. By end of today, you will be definitely understanding this. Examples, if you want to see the third pillar, which you have to understand, wherever we say direct sources, we are saying company is operating and emitting greenhouse gases by operating themselves, which is under their control, complete control. That is the direct source. Indirect source, where I have no or little control. For example, purchase of electricity. I have a control. I can purchase some little less some month and, shut down the lights for offices. Or I will, change my energy source from being dependent on the grid, like discoms, which are supplying to us, or we can go to renewable energy sources. Right? There are several PPA agreement, private ones, public ones, we can take and consume the electricity from that source. So these are the 3 important pillars. The first pillar is measuring. Second pillar is, of course, reporting of what? Greenhouse gas emissions. So measuring and reporting of what? Greenhouse gas emissions coming from direct or indirect sources, specifically when you are burning the fossil fuel to operate your company. Clear? That's the carbon accounting in a nutshell. However, Al Gore, he used to be a vice president in terms of Bill Clinton, and he was also a running mate for few of the presidents of America. He defined it very simply. Yeah, he said carbon accounting is like a financial statement for environmental science. Make sense? It is a financial statement for what? Environment. It is not financial statement for your company operation, but it is the financial statement of your company environment operations. How we are impacting the environment if we are calculating, measuring and reporting, yeah, which is of course a greenhouse gas reporting we can do, is carbon accounting. That's how he defines, right? It helps, of course, organization to understand their impact on climate change and take action to reduce their emissions. So see here, he's trying to show you the global picture of carbon accounting. Yeah, that you are actually not helping your own company, yeah, by saving certain money, by transiting yourself to renewable sources, etc. But also you are helping a bigger cause, which is a climate change, right? So he is that guy, and he's one of those guys who in 90s and 2000s were so aggressive that people really realize something is changing in world. Of course, America still remains the laggard in this area of climate action because of different precedents who came in play. But Al Gore was voicing his concerns since the time of Bill Clinton era. Now, actual body which has developed the greenhouse gas emission, that name of the body is WRI, which is which is short form of the World Resource Institute. Yeah, it's an institute, same like ESG Pro Mastery Institute. Of course, we are not an NGO, we are for-profit organization, but it is an NGO, which is WRI. That institute has defined carbon accounting because they have developed a standard for the world. And the standard name is, anybody know the name of the standard which World Resource Institute has developed? Greenhouse gas greenhouse gas protocol. That's the name of the standard which World Resource Institute has developed. They defined carbon accounting as a process of measuring and reporting of a company greenhouse gas emission, and it is a critical tool for organizations to understand and manage their environment impact. So they also brought in the larger context, but the definition what I gave you in the beginning, the three definition remains the same. Three pillar definition which is critical to understand was the process of measuring and reporting. Second, company greenhouse gas emission. And third was where from that gas emission is happening. Is it happening from the direct sources on basis of which you are producing your goods by burning fossil fuel, or indirect sources where you are buying from? So generally it is a scope 2 and a scope 3. Of course, I will define for you a scope 1 and 2 and 3 later on as well. Why carbon accounting matters, why people even are considering carbon accounting going forward. So the reason is has a huge connection, and actually it has the only connection with the climate change right now, as much as scientists had developed it. So carbon accounting is very crucial for understanding and addressing the climate change. Okay, by how you do that? By carbon accounting. Carbon accounting is a method, right? Like a financial statement is a report which happens on the accounting methods, right? Indian standard, IFRS standard, US GAAP standard. There are several standards. Each country can add its own standard, and they help you to calculate company or institutions or firms financial operation, right? That's what you record in your financial accounts. But when it comes to carbon account, where you are trying to understand and address the climate change, what you should be recording. So you will be accurately measuring the emission that organization can identify. So organization has to identify. I cannot measure it on their behalf. Organization has to decide which are the material areas where they can identify the carbon emission is happening. Hotspot is a word for that. Yeah, in carbon accounting, we say hotspot. In sustainability reporting, we say material topics. Same thing. But organization has to identify those areas where they think they are emitting carbon, and they are emitting carbon enough to disturb the ecology or accounting system. Just give me one sec. Hello. So that is the major crux here, that you need to accurately measure emissions, which organization can identify the area which they think is quite important for you guys, and a reduction, you can do some reduction to that. Okay, that is also very important. You can identify any area of your carbon emission, but if you are not able to control it, it's very difficult to measure and report, because at some point in time you will feel threatened. However, it is important, you have to report all side of carbon emission, calculate it and report it accurately, but be clear about it that you can do something about that. For example, a steel factory, cement factory, they know by clinking the stones, calcareous stone to the cement side, when you convert, that conversion process happens, there are several gases which you emit, which are greenhouse gases. You cannot help it, you have to do that process. And that is why the industry which are more threatened by climate actions are steel and cement factories, which are going to get more impacted. And that's why you need to identify the area where you can, first of all, which are critical for you, and they are emitting carbon, and they are emitting carbon so much so that it is disturbing the ecosystem. And third, where you think you can at least do some reduction or contribute to the global effort by mitigating the climate change. Definitely you should record that area and place it in the public domain. Second part which we need to understand about why carbon accounting matters is role of the national GHG inventories. GHG inventory is a terminology used for all the accounting which you do and calculate your carbon emission in terms of tonnage of carbon dioxide. These tons of carbon dioxide emission, right? That's what you look into. So the carbon accounting data is essential for countries to report their greenhouse gas emissions to international body. So there are, compulsory requirement nowadays for certain companies, and like in India, it's top 1,000 companies. They have to report. Yeah, under the international bodies like United Nations Framework Convention on Climate Change, UNFCCC. In India, we have taken that UNFCCC and converted into BRSR, which is our own standard launched by SEBI. This helps country to track the progress. So country collects all this data from different sources, from corporates, from their own organizations, and whatever NDCs they have set, they look into that according to Paris Agreement, and this helps the country to track their progress, isn't it? The third part why carbon accounting is important is that if you want to do any carbon mitigation or carbon change, climate change mitigation, yeah, you need to know where you stand. And that is why GHG inventories are important. Yeah, greenhouse gas inventory, that how much of carbon I'm emitting and from where, what is the kind of that carbon, can I change that directly or indirectly? Yeah, that understanding is critical, and that's why carbon accounting is essential. The second is, of course, compliance to avoid the penalties and business disruption. And third is enhancing the sustainability and reporting of the company. Now, let me give you a real life example of Microsoft. We have discussed about them 2-3 times yesterday. So today you will see at least 2 slides talking about them. Microsoft has done a carbon neutrality pledge. And they have decided not only to become carbon neutral, but they want to remove the carbon emission, whatever they have done till today. So they have 3 basic pledge which they have made. The first pledge, of course, Satya Nadella is on the right-hand side. You can see an Indian origin guy sitting in Microsoft and at the helm of such such activity. And it is helping them. Trust me, this pledge, this initiative is giving a mileage as a CEO, which is very difficult for a lot of other CEOs to get it. What is the pledge? He has a first pledge that we will become carbon negative by 2030. So not only they will be carbon net zero, but they will be net negative emitter of carbon. You are getting my point. Like Tesla, right now it's a net negative emitter. They have a carbon credits which they are selling in the market and earning $600 million. So they also want to become by 2030. Okay. Now, Second pledge which they have made is remove our historical carbon emission by 2050, which I told you. By 2050, they not only want to become, Paris Agreement says that they have to be carbon net zero by 2050, right? And these three terminology, please understand, are different. Carbon neutral, net zero, and carbon negative. All three are different. Carbon neutral is very simple. You emit carbon emission, you can't stop yourself or can't reduce it. What you do, you go in market and buy. Why buy those voluntary carbon certificates? You buy those, bring it back, and compensate yourself. You are a carbon neutral. Simple. Second is no. If you want to become net zero, your emission and your sinks should be equivalent first. So here we try to not emit. Even though I'm emitting, I have enough resources which are generating green energy that it compensates each other, and I am a zero carbon emitter. You got my point? So what is the difference? Here you can buy and compensate, and you can keep repeating yourself being a carbon emitter. But in the net zero condition, whatever carbon you are emitting, because still you will emit some carbon, but you have enough sink on the right-hand side to compensate it. Am I making clear to everyone? Are you guys able to follow? And the third concept is being negative, means I am not emitting at all. Whatever I am emitting is actually carbon negative. So I am completely on renewable. My people wear dresses which are carbon neutral. They are buying from right sources where the carbon is not been emitted. They are living in houses which are also carbon neutral. My suppliers are carbon neutral, etc., etc. And I have a negative emission. Not even single ton of carbon I am emitting, carbon dioxide I am emitting. Clear? So that's the difference between these three. Am I clear with these three? Because this is, I have seen a lot of people, a lot of experts sometimes getting confused, including me at some point in time.
विवेक जी,
जी बोलिए रजनी।
आपने कहा कि by 2030 the pledge has been taken by Microsoft that they're going to be carbon negative. It means there are not going to be any emissions. साथ ही आपने you had made us understand the carbon
No. Carbon negative is they will emit carbon in positive side. Means they will be not emitting carbon, plus they will be generating enough green.
That was net zero you told, na?
नहीं, net zero मतलब zero ना. Net zero मतलब emit किया, negative
उसका एक सिंक है जिसको ग्रीन से आपने कंपनसेट किया.
हाँ, so यहाँ पे आप ब्लू लाइन
और
देखिए.
कार्बन न्यूट्रल वो है कि आपने एमिट किया और आपने बाजार से खरीद लिया उसे.
बिल्कुल सिंपल टर्म बता रहा हूँ. दिस इज नॉट एज सिंपल एज दैट. देयर इज अ प्रॉपर
कार्बन नेगेटिव जरा रिपीट करिए. कार्बन नेगेटिव का मतलब आपने किया.
कार्बन नेगेटिव आपको मैं एग्जांपल से दिखा देता हूँ. आप आइए, पिक्चर which is showing millions of metric tons CO2 estimated on right hand side bottom.
हाँ, नीचे है.
Right? This is their actual plan. This is the Microsoft plan, which is in their sustainability report. What they are doing is, by following it, they are showing you a light blue color emissions first, which is what? Which is not their own emission. This is their supply chain emission. For example, data warehouse right now is owned by team Microsoft. Azure का जो भी data centers है, that they own. And data center emits massive amount of carbon dioxide because it consumes a lot of power, right? So right now they have already shifted a lot of it to the outside. Means they have given it to data center people like Equinox. Equinox is a company which operates data center on your behalf, and they pay the bills, so they are the direct emitter. You become the indirect emitter. Still, you cannot you need the data center. Microsoft need the data center. So it becomes indirect for them and direct for the guy Equinox. Now, what I'm trying to establish here, this light blue color is those emissions. So it is growing. Even in 2023, if you see the recent data, which I will show you on next slide, it has increased from last year. So actually their power consumption on data center run by third party is increasing. So this will keep on increasing. But they are planning from next year onwards. The target is from 2025 onwards. There will be a drop on that idea, that number. And it will happen so much so that by 2030, you see it goes to 6 tons. 6 million tons. You are saying that number? It's near to 6 million tons. Still they are emitting. From 12 million ton, they will come to 16 million ton. Who? Not them, their supplier. Point number one. Point number two, you see blue lines, dark blue lines. This is
These are my owns, S1.
absolutely, that is S1. This is their emission. Now, this emission, the moment you start compensating with green energy, the green line starts showing. You are saying carbon removal. Green line is carbon removal or avoided emissions. Avoided emission थोड़ा little means little less dark green है जो बीच में है between 2015 to 2020. Now we have an international speaker, so I will remain in English. You see in the middle between 2015 to 2020, we have a little green which is avoided carbon emission or offsets. Means they are purchasing. Offset is always purchasing. So they are purchasing from India. You know, they are purchasing from Andhra Pradesh, where from Nadella comes. From their farmer are selling. Farmers are getting, dollars nowadays just by not plowing.
Oh, they are selling?
That is agriculture carbon credit. Okay, India is doing big time. And they are selling it to Microsoft, Apple, everyone. So this green ones are...
The business is changing.
Yeah, the business model is changing. So that is the green ones. So till 2023, they are buying. You will see next year also, they are buying a lot of offset and compensating. But the dark green ones, they are saying, I am deploying CCUS unit. I am transferring myself into complete renewable. So all my offices will be from, we will see that all later on. And of course, you can do a little bit of your own search and find it about very nice story they have with Microsoft. And much better is with Amazon, because these guys, which is the third point here, have pledged only $1 billion in climate innovation fund. So anybody who is developing climate tech, CCUS unit, new technology developing, they have kept a kitty of $1 billion to fund these guys. Clear? Hasija ji, your problem is addressed. Perfect. Now,
carbon removal, make us understand the carbon removal.
Removal is CCUS units. Okay, so you look, I'm sitting in a room, I'm still emitting carbon, right? I'm moving my hand, so there is a consumption of power by body, and to fill that I need food, and food is coming from carbon sources. Just a simple example, right? Now that is a carbon emission. What I have done is I have taken a pill 10 days ago, which is giving me energy till today. Like I go in a space, of course I can't have food every day. In that case, I'm taking a pill and not consuming carbon as much as if I am using the natural sources by eating it. That's the part of carbon removal on human side. On practice, how it happens is, first of all, instead of using the normal grid for your energy uses, specifically for Microsoft, they are going for renewable energy. Point number one. Point number two, they are planting more trees in their campuses, which will become sink, right? Trees are sink of carbon, correct? Generally, forestation is a sink. Third, they can also deploy climate techs, like there are several technology. You got one of the books called Clean Energy, right? There are 3 books which we have given, coffee table books, e-books. One book is on carbon, clean energy. Read that book, you will get it. It's only 10-pager, very fast reading you can do, and you will understand what are the different sources of carbon removal. That carbon removal, once you own it, becomes a part of your own compensation of S1, and you are carbon neutral, carbon negative in that. Here, they will become by 2030, they will have so much of carbon removal, which will be in excess of what they are producing. And that's why it is not only compensating, but it will cross that threshold of being, carbon neutral. Make sense? So 0 ho jayega 30 mein, and then they will also have little more extra, which they are removing from the environment, which will give them the carbon negative scenario. Make sense now?
Yeah.
Perfect. So carbon negative is just one step ahead of carbon net zero. So net zero, of course, they will become in 2030, but they will also take out more carbon dioxide from the environment. Now, last part, which you also need to know, they have a pledge called 100-100-0 commitment by 2030. Yeah, and that's the photograph on the top, where they have said that 100% of electricity consumption will happen. 100% of time they will go to green, and they will make sure that it is matched with the zero carbon energy purchases. So they are not purchasing any energy from the market. So that's how they will reach to net neutrality, and sorry, net net neutrality, by the way, another term. I have used it, so I'm clarifying. Net neutrality used by Mohammed Safi, who is IT engineer, and he knows what it means, right? It's being agnostic to anybody controlling your internet. So this is how Microsoft has started this initiative, what they have achieved. Please understand three things here. First of all, few numbers. The number is, biggest number is 96.50. Can you see that in the center of a circle? 96.50. That number is generally very high, which indicates that this company has a heavy reliance of their carbon emission happening on vendor side or customer side. Whenever I use Microsoft Office software on my computer, and specifically to run that operating system, energy is consumed. I am emitting a carbon, right? I am emitting a carbon. But Microsoft also should take onus of it. So he should prepare an operating system which should not consume any power. You are getting my point. That's the ideal situation. But because Microsoft operating system consume additional power than my computing power requirement, because I just want to do Zoom call, right? So Zoom should be responsible for my carbon emission, not the Microsoft, but Microsoft operating system also has a consumption of power. And that consumption power is also their owners, even though they are not sitting with me. They have sold their product and I am owner. I am using Microsoft Office for now 5 years. But still they take onus of it, and that becomes their scope 3 emission. Are you with me here? That's one part. So data center is another part, which is scope 3 emission. And second part is a customer. So I'm using operating system. Operating system consumes electricity power. That electricity power is their responsibility as well, but not directly, indirectly, isn't it? It's indirect. He sold the product, his obligation is finished. But he's also have an obligation for environment, that he should have produced a product which should not have consumed the power which a customer is using it. Simple. Is this example is relatable? Everybody can understand it clearly. What is scope 3?
What are these numbers written on the circumference of a circle? 1, 2, 3, 4. What do they indicate?
I will define for you. So one is number 1. Okay, so here
Circumference में है ना?
Achha, that line is missing. I will send you this report. Please read it. Of course, that's a mistake we have done there. We should have pushed the legend. But what I will tell you that this 1, 2, 3, 4 is all relates to particular category. You will see there are 15 category in general. So scope 3 has 15 category. You have to understand that. We will learn that after a few slides, we are going to learn that as well. There are 15 category under scope 3 emission. Out of that, Microsoft is reporting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, and then 11, 12, 13. So 3 there, 8 here. So 11. They are reporting on 11 of those category. So each number represents a category. Are you with me, Rajni ji?
जी.
हाँ, तो ये कैटेगरी है, but all this together is 96.5%. Clear? So that is the highest emitter, and this how this emission comes. One from the data center, which may be 1 or 2, I don't remember now, and one will be from the consumer side who is using it. Even though they are not directly, Microsoft is not directly involved, they are indirectly involved. That's why scope 3. So anything indirect, not in their control, they cannot control me, right? How I am using it. Like in car, generally you must have heard, right? Somebody's car gives less mileage, somebody's car gives good mileage. But is the Mahindra is responsible? Is BMW is responsible? No, they are not. It is the consumer who is responsible. So they take the scope 1. Consumer, me being the consumer, I am emitting a scope 1. But Mahindra takes the scope 3. Even though I'm a bad driver, so what they should do, they should come and train me, boss. Please don't put a lot of accelerator. You are running automatic car used in this fashion, etc., etc. Clear? That is scope 3. Let's go to scope 2, which is not in their control directly. And what is that? Purchase of electricity. Now, whenever Microsoft is using energy, there is a discom which is supplying their energy, right? Now, if that discom, how that discom is producing, how old is their thermal power plant, how much of coal they use, what is the processing system, is it coal based, is it a gas based? US only gas based systems are there. There's no coal based, means is very few which are left. That's why they don't care about this discussion as well, because they are gas based, so they are less carbon emitter than the coal based ones. So the scope 2 emission is that emission which you purchase. You can make a decision that whether I should purchase from, say, in Mumbai, you have a Adani's system, which we are purchasing from. The DISCOM is a short form for distribution, electricity distributors, whichever they are in there in that area. So Mahagenco is another company, which is again a DISCOM. So these kind of companies are in India, in Bangalore, where I live. We have BSEB, which is Bangalore Suburban Area Electricity Distribution Company. Now, all these companies, can I control them? No, I can't. But what I can do is still I have a little bit of proximity. I can request them to change their source of energy, or I can change my own source of energy, right? I can go to another supplier who has a solar farm, and I can tell him, please supply to me, to my house, my office, etc. And that's why that becomes little nearer to you than the consumer and data center, which you have already outsourced, right? Or sold to them. And that is why they are called scope 2 emissions. And in Microsoft case, you can see they are consuming to the extent of 2.56% of the total carbon emission happens from their purchases, which they are doing. Okay, and this purchase is not only electricity, it can be your steam, it can be your, like in Europe, you know, right? They need cooling system, heating system. So they need gases to be supplied to house for the heater purpose, heating purpose, etc. All that, or for offices as well, all that comes as a part of scope 2. Yeah, so it's an indirect emission, but here I am repeating again and again a word. Anybody has noticed what was that word which I have repeated for a scope 2 thrice in my discussion? One which I was repeating. Yes, Rajniji, go ahead.
You were saying the purchase of electricity.
Purchase. Purchase is that word. So wherever you see purchased electricity, purchased refrigeration, purchase steam, purchase gas, that purchase become a key definition for scope 2. Clear?
You mean to say scope 2 only contains the purchase?
Purchase will be keyword there. It's 99, 95% at least purchase word will be used with that line item. Okay, then it is scope 2. Otherwise, it will be scope 3, because anyway, I'm not controlling. It's not happening in my own premise or my nearby premise, which I have. I'm controlling, and thereby it's out of my purview of discussion. And then comes the scope 1, which is 0.94 for this company. And you can see that a base year which they have taken now is FY20. And of course, E here shows you retirement from the carbon removal. So how much they are retiring from the carbon removal. The little dark one is the retirement from avoided emission, which one they are avoiding. So they are switching off the lights, or they have put the IoT system in offices where if the person is not sitting in his cabin or his desk, his cubicle, the light will be switched off automatically. Or toilet, bathroom lights.
Can you deliberate on the retirement from the avoided emissions, please?
Sorry?
This term retirement from avoided emission is not clear. Can you please?
Retirement means you are removing it. Okay, retirement is a word used.
Yes. Word तो ठीक है. From the avoided emissions means you try to
told
avoid
you,
the emission. आपने बत्ती बंद कर दी. You have
नहीं,
closed.
बत्ती नहीं बंद करी. हमने क्या किया? हमने सिस्टम ही चेंज कर दिया. So I have avoided that completely. For example, earlier
लिफ्ट में आपने लीड सर्टिफिकेशन में करता है ना, लिफ्ट में ऑटोमेटिक वो कर देता है.
that is avoided emission. I took an office earlier. My office was in a building which was not LEED certified. Now I have shifted myself to a LEED certified building. So I have done two things. One, I have done the energy saving mitigation action. When we will learn the strategic mitigation for carbon removal, we will learn what are the different strategies. This becomes one strategy. But at the same time, my dependency of energy coming from purchase energy, which is scope 2, now it has shifted to natural green lights, right? LEED certifies use that. You are using more of green light, means natural sources than the electric sources. I put IoT, another example. Let's forget about energy saving. If I was using cars for bringing my employee to my office place, which was BMW diesel cars, then I put a policy that, boss, tomorrow onwards, nobody should come by car. They should come by walking. Yeah, so you are living in Noida, walk till Sahadra, and then I will take you as your office employee. Or you shift the BMW diesel car to BMW electric. If that is the policy I put, I have avoided carbon emission here.
नो यू आर नॉट अवॉइडेड. आप इलेक्ट्रिसिटी भी तो कहीं से खरीद रहे हैं, वो भी तो इंडिया में तो जैसे सपोज
वो चीपर है ना रजनी जी, वो चीप है. वही तो पॉइंट है ना. वो बैटरी को चार्ज करना मच चीपर है देन द फॉसिल.
वाइज ना सर, बट एनवायरमेंट के टर्म वाइज
रिलेटिव आपको हमेशा देखना है. देखिए कार्बन एक, सॉरी प्रेस्टली इज देयर, तो आई हैव टू स्पीक इन इंग्लिश. बियर फॉर टुडे. So what I'm trying to say is, if in climate action you are talking, you cannot talk in absolute term, because nothing is absolute in carbon accounting. Okay, you should always talk about relative. Remember that. People will tell you that I have a machine, you can measure exactly how much your company is emitting gas, SOx, NOx, but it's so costly, you cannot deploy it forever. So all the terminology which you will use in carbon accounting, you will always use in terms of relative. So the shift between a diesel-oriented car, which has a factor much higher than the electric car also emits carbon. It's not that they are carbon neutral. You are right. बैटरी में भी कहीं से एनर्जी आ रही है, राइट? इलेक्ट्रिसिटी आ रही है, तो इलेक्ट्रिसिटी कहीं से सोर्स से आ रहा होगा. बट आप दिल्ली में देखो, इन दिल्ली you have most of the charging station now converted into roadside, if you have seen, converted into solar powered ones. Are you with me? So they have completely made it neutral, kind of. Still there is a equipment which are used emit some carbon by manufacturing it, etc., or by maintaining it, etc. Battery itself is a carbon guzzler. But my point here was that you have to talk in terms of relative, and that relative terms brings the avoided emission. Okay, can I shift to certain low carbon emission technology which helps? So this is another terminology which I'm throwing today, is low carbon emission technology. A lot of people talk about this. Okay, in next few session we may bring that concept as well. So this is how Microsoft is doing. That brings us.
Sir,
Yes, Brenda.
sorry to interrupt.
Go
Sir,
ahead.
could you please elaborate like what is the difference or like any similarity between retirement from avoided emissions and avoided emission offsets? The example which you had given that you ask
Offset.
farmers.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So
So here the D1 and on the previous slide you spoke about that we ask farmers not to plow and so I didn't just get that. Like, is there
okay.
any similarity or difference between them?
Okay, so first let me understand your question, because I have explained it. So let me understand where you are stuck. I have used two
Yeah.
terms. One is the retirement or removal, which is similar. So don't get confused with that. Retirement or removal is a terminology which is used in carbon emission. Second part of it is a carbon removal and carbon removal through offsets, right? Where is your confusion?
Yeah, on the previous slide.
Previous slide. On this slide.
Yeah, the avoided emission offsets
Offsets.
in
Now,
the graph. Yeah.
yes. So in the graph,
this one. And,
yeah. Got it. Let me give you a little idea. So since 2012 onwards, till 2020, you see there is a small dotted line. I don't know if my cursor is there or not.
Yeah.
Trying to show you small lines in that color, the color which is written with avoided emission offset. So currently Microsoft is offsetting it by carbon credits, because you see exactly opposite to that, they have a carbon emission as well, which is in dark blue color. Similar amount. If the graph would have been bigger, you could have made a relative understanding. Similar amount. Ideally, people target to scope 1 because that is their own emission, right? So if you are unable to reduce that emission after certain level, like I have shifted to renewable, I have shifted to electric vehicle, etc., but still there will be some emission. Why? Firefighters. We call them in carbon accounting a terminology, fugitive gases,
Yeah.
refrigerators, AC, air conditioners. These also are emitting, right? So there are certain emissions which you can't stop. Now, if those emissions are happening in your company and you want to compensate, what will you do? What you will do? You will go in market and buy carbon credits. And that is what Microsoft is doing. So they are doing by offsetting means buying the carbon credit to offset their scope 1 or scope 2 emission, ideally. Is it clear now or you need little more clarity?
Yeah, I just, could you repeat the example which you had given that we are asking farmers not to quote that
For a
example?
farmer example, why I was giving, because Microsoft, Apple, Tesla, a lot of people, Tesla, I'm just saying a name, but there are 3, 4 large guys, even Nvidia, are coming India and buying the carbon credit. Why? Because Indian carbon credit is cheapest. For example, for farmer right now who is already doing cultivation in their field, right? They are making some money. And by the way, Andhra Pradesh farmers are really rich, as rich and maybe sometime better than even Haryana guys, right? So they are very rich. So their agriculture is profitable. Plus, now they started selling carbon credits. So they are converting their operation because agriculture, part of the agriculture, if you do harvesting of certain product, it becomes a carbon negative stuff. And that carbon negative, if you get certified CER, certified emissions certificates for you, those certificate, and if those are certified by a proper authority, you can sell it to international players under that NDC Paris Agreement Arrangement Article 6. You are getting my point? And being
Yes.
cheapest, world wants to buy it. Because in America, if you buy, I will show you one graph, it is costing somewhere between 100 to $130 a ton of carbon credit. While in India, it is 2 to 10. There is a blog on that in our group. Please go and read that how India is mismatched. And that's why Article 6 in COP29 may help us better. So our carbon credits becomes little more valuable. Yeah. So what didn't you understand here, this example?
Yeah, now I understood. So
Yeah.
like my further research would
Yeah.
be like which product, like which harvest do they want to offset credit? That topic would be
And
interesting
there
to
is a
know.
blog
Yeah.
and there is a big article in Times of India and Economic Times. Both has been shared in past. You can Google it and find. Anyway, our team will post it again.
Yeah, sure.
So,
Thank you
so
so
what is the statutory body that issues the certificate to them? Is there a
Yes,
statutory
there
body
are a
that?
statutory body, which is CEA, yeah, which is our central government body for energy efficiency.
Okay.
Okay, that means they have given the guidelines. There are auditors who actually approve and certify you, and then there are exchanges where you can sell it, like EKI in Indore. There is an Indore-based company, and again a very good story there. Definitely, you should know about a company called EKI Energy. We have discussed in several free sessions about them, and they have a very good story there because their stock from being 300 rupees to 3,000 rupees, 1,000 times growth was there in that stock. Yeah, right now they are struggling, but it's a very good story to read. So EKI Energy is a trading body where you can trade it and people can come and buy it, right? So there is a trading market, which is we say ETS. In Europe, it is a European trading system on which you buy and sell. In India, you have private as well as public system where you can buy and sell, and all of them are now voluntary carbon. Earlier, it was CERs. Now that has been good. Again, there is a session on it. In between, we will learn about it in detail. Let me not waste time on that. Otherwise, we will lose the class. Okay. Any other question? If not, this and next 3 slides are a piece of cake for you. And if yes, let me explain. A scope 1 emission is in center. What is that emission? It is a own emission. Always remember a word called own. The moment you can relate that word to the activity of company, that emission is direct emission, and it is called a scope 1 emission. Of course, why scope 1? Why not telescope 1? Why not scenic scope 1? Why not different name, right? Why not different name? That is a matter of debate, and I also don't know. But there is a relative discussion about it, which will happen very soon. Okay, we will also define for you why scope 1, why scope 2, why scope 3 as a name, why not telescope 1. Okay, coming back to discussion, that's the center. So company sits in center, right? And then what company does, it buys raw material from mines, it buys raw material from different other suppliers, bring into the company, process that, add value to it, and sell it to the market. The moment you send it for the market sales, that again is not under your control, correct? That's called your customer management cycle, where you will have a dealer, distributor, warehouses for that operation. And then of course, customer themselves are not under your control. So those are indirect. One of the closest indirect gas emitter is scope 2. Why? Because purchase is the word you use, and wherever you use purchase, right, and it is very close to you, 2 conditions are getting satisfied. You are not able to control them, but you have a control through whether I should purchase from a vendor next to my house, or I should go to South Bombay and I buy from H&M. Yeah, that decision is yours. That decision is nearness decision, right? That is my decision. I can still take, I think people in Sahadra are emitting too much of carbon, and people in South Bombay are not emitting any carbon. So I should go and buy from South Bombay guy, forgetting that you will take a flight which will emit triple of the gas than what you are doing. And again, you are going to buy for 30,000 same cloth, which you are getting in your Sarojini market for 100 rupees. I'm just giving an example. So all that matters. Yeah. And that decision decides whether it is scope 1 or scope 3. Now, scope 3, you can again make a decision, right? Whether I should buy a mine from Jharkhand, Jharia, which is a coal producer region, or I should buy it from Telangana. Yeah. That decision again you can make, but that decision will not change the scope. And the reason is both will give you the coal, which will have a similar kind of standard, right? Maybe there will be some difference in terms of how much of calorific value each of them in joules, how much of heat it can generate, but still that decision is not under control, and you are not changing anything. By changing your decision, that becomes a scope 3. That's one way to explain it. There are several ways to explain the scope 1 and 2 and 3. Yeah. So greenhouse gases which are released into atmosphere as an activity, human activity specifically. We are not talking about natural, right? Corporate is concerned about the human activity. Importance is very simple. Here we need to be accurate about which scope I am counting and why. So accuracy matters there on the remote reporting of emission. And that is why understanding of scope 1, 2, and 3 is important. Let's first understand scope 1. So scope 1 are direct emissions. Examples are the one which will explain it better than the relative discussion of Sarojini market and South Bombay market. What is that? Emission occurs directly from source, which is owned and controlled by an organization. Again, you see that owned and controlled by the organization. These are the 2 important factors decides this a direct emission. Which are the sources? On-site fuel consumption, like you are using in your DG set in your company, or you have certain motors, etc., which are taking natural gas, gasoline, etc. You have a boiler which is consuming gas, right? All that on-site fuel combustion is a direct emission. Second is industrial processes, so chemical reaction. For example, you are mixing 2 colors, right? So, or 2 different chemicals and creating third chemical. So you are a chemical factory, or you are a part of chemical industry where you are doing this processes. That process also is a direct emission. The third is transportation. So any vehicle which company owned, irrespective it is used for the bringing the employee, or it is used for selling your goods to distributor, or sending to distributor, or bringing from your mines. If the vehicle, again word is owned by you, that's a direct emission, scope 1. Clear? Scope 2 and indirect emission, of course, scope 2 and 3 is indirect emission, which is from purchase electricity, purchase steam, purchase heating. All that purchase, if it is happening under indirect emission, is scope 2. Again, the examples are fuel combustion, industrial processes, and transportations that we need to see there. Scope 3 is, of course, other indirect emission. Now, other indirect emission which are not under your control. Keyword here is not under your control. Purchase might sometimes see, right? Invoices, receipt, and you will say, I have purchased it. I purchased, equipment for my warehouse. You might have loader unloaders. You might have forklifts, right? Maybe you have purchased it for the client, but that purchase doesn't reflect for your not client, for your if it is, by the way, if the warehouse is owned by you, then it's your scope 1 emission. If it is a warehouse is owned by somebody else, which is your distributor and dealer, and you have purchased and given them that forklift, and forklift is consuming a diesel or gas, but that is paid by your dealer and distributor, then it is scope 3. Clear? So again, the similar kind of indirect emissions are delivery truck, global supply chain, shopping product use, shopping elements like waste disposal. All that word is used for a scope 3 emission. Now again, let's understand it by a real life example. This graph is taken from the case study which I have shared with you. Now, I want somebody to read the case study. At least first one paragraph should be read by one guy. If you have not read it, if you have read it, give me the summary of it. So who has read it? Tell me that. Case study of Unilever, which was shared in the group. Let me open the case study directly. So whoever has read it, first. Anybody who has read it completely, let's start from there. Yes, no, thank you. Any word is okay with me. I'm not a teacher here, right? I'm working with you guys. So be honest. If you have not read it, you've not read it. Simple. Who has not read it? Tell me that.
Partial. Suman.
Have you read it?
So I have read it partially, I told you.
Partially. You have read it partially. Who has not read it?
डिटेल में ग्राफ नहीं पढ़ पाई थी, बाकी तो समरी ब्लू वाली तो पढ़ी ली थी.
Perfect. Perfect. Tell me, what did you understood, Rajni? Let me start with you only.
Unilever has, let me open it. That will help me.
Okay, go ahead. Let me open it for you if you want.
No, I have kept it on my desktop.
Perfect.
Basically, they have submitted their sustainability report in the 2024, and they have set an example, and where they have declared, and company has committed that they are going to reduce emissions in all the 3 categories, 1 to 3, scope 1 to 3, all 3. So, and they have set out a goal which they have called it ambitious, that by 2039 they are going to achieve a target, that is the net zero for them.
Yeah.
And for that they had to measure their GHG emissions. They did that, and in 2023 they had implemented some improvements in the GHG emissions, and they have considered a baseline, which you taught us yesterday, that some baseline of the some year has to be taken for the measurement. That they have taken for the year 2021. And then they they calculated that in 2021 their GHG emissions were 121 million tons of the carbon dioxide equivalent, and
Right.
which also included the indirect consumers use, with the way Microsoft had for their consumers.
Absolutely.
Oh, now the three emissions, then this graph I was not able to appreciate because I was reading the text only. They
Okay.
followed the process, GHG protocol, not the ISO wala thing. And
Absolutely.
the indirect consumer phase emission was the optional part under the scope 3 for them. Um, and by doing so, they have been successful also. And their GHG emissions got reduced to 53 million CO2e equivalent, as they have reported in their sustainability report. And their annual report of the 2023 contained this.
Perfect. Good. At least you have gone through it and you are trying to go through it as well. So
फिर उन्होंने डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन बताया जो उस समय समझ नहीं आया, अब समझ में आ रहा है कि परचेज गुड्स सर्विसेज रॉ मटेरियल जो है ये स्कोप 2 वाले थे जो उन्होंने किया कवर.
right.
देन उसके बाद अपस्ट्रीम ट्रांसपोर्ट डिस्ट्रीब्यूशन लॉजिस्टिक ये सब तब समझ नहीं आ रहा था, अभी भी नहीं आ रहा, इसको तो ध्यान से पढ़ना पड़ेगा.
नहीं 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 आपको अभी बताएंगे, आपको पढ़ना पड़ेगा ऑफ कोर्स, बट वी विल टेल यू एज वेल. आवर ड्यूटी इज टू टेल यू एग्जैक्टली व्हाट इज अपस्ट्रीम, व्हाट इज डाउनस्ट्रीम, which
Then
are the category which lies in upstream, which are the category which lies in downstream, and why.
they offset something from the green cover also for reducing this. So by उसके बाद स्कोप 1 स्कोप 2 में जा रहे थे तो then the class का time came.
Perfect.
That's it.
Anybody else who has read it? Ramesh ji said yes or no. I don't. I could not hear you, Ramesh ji.
It came
So,
around.
You have read it?
I guess Rajni
Yeah.
ma'am
Go
was
ahead. Tell me your summary. What did you understood, Vrunda?
So I just glanced through it. I didn't pay attention to the numbers, but one thing I noticed that in the scope one, they had mentioned that the emissions through the shampoos and like shampoo bottles, and same they have repeated in scope three. So I understood in scope three they are like trying to say that ki whenever people use shampoos or shower gel, like heating water, something is used. So that kind of thing. And even in scope one, like while making the shampoo, they are using it like maybe for the packaging
Plastic.
or maybe for the yeah.
Plastic.
So
Yes.
that thing I like how do they measure it and how do like now I understand why it is necessary to say that like it's a relative concept, not the absolute
Absolutely.
targets.
Very good. That was the purpose fulfilled. Now let me understand from somebody else as well. What did they get? Manish, you are not speaking at all. I hope you are getting it all.
I didn't read, sir, but while reading, I got to know about scope 1 and 1, 2, and 3, but
Right.
I couldn't understand the summary.
Perfect.
But as they explained now,
Right.
I could understand, sir, now.
Perfect. But now I will explain as well. That's my responsibility. Let me first tell you the story. For anybody else wants to try, or shall I go ahead? Ramesh, do you want to give a try? Or did you understand? Or Mohammed Safi ji, of course, you would have got it. Ramesh
No,
ji.
I'm in the middle of work itself. Like, yeah,
Oh, okay,
probably
okay,
you can
fine, fine.
continue.
You are
Sorry.
sitting
Yeah,
in
please.
office.
Yeah.
Makes
Yeah.
sense. No worries. So let me explain. The most interesting story which I got from Unilever case study when I was preparing it was exactly what Vrinda started with. The shampoo and shower gel, ladies generally use all the time, right? First of all, I never knew that you need to use hot water to rinse the shampoo and shower gel. That is what is recommended. Yeah, I never knew that. Let me be very honest with you guys. Miss, we use all the time shampoo and shower gels, but never knew that when you use it, you have to use with a hot water. So that's
Not
what
always, not always.
it is recommended. That is what the point is. And that is what Unilever is facing a scope 3 challenges with. They have the massive emission. Of course, they have a massive emission coming out from their scope 3. But out of that, 53% is coming from, you can see this graph, right? The graph is visible to you all.
Summary में भी लिखा है.
थोड़ा बढ़ा देता. It is coming from the purchased goods and services, which is raw material, like plastic, like chemicals, like petroleum jelly, etc. All that which they buy is a scope 3 emission, and 53% is coming from that raw material itself. Then you have 11% from purchased good or packaging material. So like here actually plastic comes in, the wrappers, the cartons, whatever plastic you are using or packaging material you are using is that 11%, specifically when you are filling the Surf Excel, etc. in the bottle. Then comes 13% from goods and service of indirect procurement. For example, those are not your direct purchases, but you need those services as well. Those are the one which enables this raw material purchase and bringing it to your place. Different apps, different softwares, different, they have a logistics system. All that system's cost is in direct procurement. Of course, it is not their own owners. It is owned by the suppliers, yeah, to track the system, make sure that they are getting original, etc. That is 13%. Then comes 2%, which is scope 1 and 2 GHG emission coming from their own operation, which is scope now? Clearly, it is scope 1 and 2. Together is 2%. Means 98% Unilever cost is lying in scope 3. 53% out of that is definitely coming from the raw material. And next, another 27% approximately is coming from a supplier side stuff. Rest of it is coming from the customer side, which starts with the downstream leased asset like warehouses. They are using. अब गांव में तो यूनिलीवर का warehouse नहीं हो सकता, right? But there is a central place where they will keep and distribute in all the villages nearby. That place is owned by the distributor, not by them. So again, it is a part of scope 3. And this is related to ice cabinets. Ice cabinets is 6%. So major emission comes from their ice cabinet, which they have kept in hotels. Then you have 2% use of sold product, which is the plastic of that shampoo bottle or the wrapper of the soap or the wrapper of, plastic container of the surf, which you have. That accounts for how much? 2%. See the 6%. That is the area of concern. And that people realize that heating is one of the major axis there. The heating of water with which the customer utilizes it. The uses, right? That's 6%. You compare that, right? It is as equivalent as their warehouse carbon emission. Are you with me? And that is why it is, means of course, it is a recommendation. And here the concern is, can they change the recommendation? They can't, because they have designed for a particular, you must have heard that rinsing is very important. Whenever you do the shampoo, you need to rinse it, correct? And that too, for a particular time period, it should be rinsed. And it is applied for all the products. There is a recommended side and there is what we do, right? We are always lethargic, means kitna time aap shower mein nikalte ho. If you are on a holiday, you spend half day, right? Sitting in the bathtub. But when you have office, you do it in 5 minutes to 10 minutes. So my point is that we do not use a different story, but they have a standard operating procedure of using their product. And that is critical. On that basis, they have to calculate the carbon emission and they cannot change it just by changing.
Sir, I have a doubt.
Go
Like
ahead.
here, 98% is scope 3 in
Absolutely.
Unilever. So,
Yes.
while measuring the emissions, they could have missed, no, sir, or why they have to promptly or honestly convey this is our emission, or they could have hide also. So how
What?
this,
So
like
that is the point. That is
how,
the
how
point of
or if they hide or if they don't convey, then how the like a government or how public gets to know,
No.
or they could have missed also, no, sir,
So
such
Manish, very good
scope
point there.
3 emissions.
Very
So
good.
is there any body who checks on it, or is there who cross verifies? That is my question. Because they are looking on the hot water which needs. There are many companies where such minute emissions might miss out, or they may hide also. The which is the main reason. So
So
uh,
let me answer this. Of
yes.
course, Pestly, Rajni ji, Ramesh ji, all three of them, Mohammad Safi ji also knows about it. And the reason is sustainability reporting principle. Three-part answer I will give you, Manish, which everybody should know. The first part, sustainability report is a voluntary report most of the time. This last 10 years, it was completely voluntary. Now compliances has come in Europe, in America, and India, everywhere it is mandatory. So first part, it is a voluntary. So you can decide what you want to hide, what you want to showcase. But there is a principle which you have to follow. What is this principle? These principles are coming from framework, which has been designed internationally. One of those framework is GRI, Global Reporting Initiative, Manish. Unilever claims that they are in compliant with it. You know what is the first tenet of that framework? That you will be transparent. This exercise is voluntary. If you want to be compliant with any framework or a standard or a compliance authority like CSRD, BRSR, SEBI, SEC, if you want to comply with it, of course, there is a danda as well. There is a stick as well. Yeah, you can be penalized. But it is a voluntary aspect, and that's how last 30 years, since 1997, first time actually got introduced was GRI and GHG protocol. Both of them has a principle. GHG also has a principle. We will learn that. If I had a time today, I would have covered that. But good, we are going at a slow pace. I am not worried. But you are getting it. That's the important point. But there are principles in GHG protocol itself that if you are reporting, you have to be as honest as you can discover. However, both of the framework gives you flexibility. If you have missed out, no problem. The year you realized you have missed out that heating water is a critical SOP of my uses of my product. And this is a SOP. Please understand how Manish, you became a carbon accountant for Unilever tomorrow.
Yes. Okay.
It happens tomorrow. They hired you. How will you know that why people should use hot water? I was not knowing. Let me be honest with you, Manish. I was not knowing that there is a hot water requirement here. Rinsing requirement of 2 minutes is there. Rinsing requirement by 3 water cycle is there. All that I didn't know. But this is their SOP. How you will know or I will know is reading their SOP for the consumer use, or by knowing the property of chemical which I am putting inside. Kitna time lagta hai to get out from your skin? Yeah. Or you are applying cream, right? That cream has a specification E889, E6. Each of them has a different property for which there is a SOP done by IUPAC. Different bodies are there. And those documents are kept with, particularly with Unilever, when they are supplying it to consumer. I have never read, let me be very honest, Rajniji, I never read any paper which comes with a product. Means generally, if it is not an electronic gadget, I throw, उस पे आप जाके पढ़ो, बहुत कुछ लिखा होता है. It has a SOP. That SOP is what Manish will ask company from. Give me that, please. How otherwise you will know how much current, and there is a category under a scope 3. He's not asking just by his whims and fancy, and ESG Pro Mastery Institute has given him a tool and technique. He's asking because under GHG protocol category scope 3, there is a requirement under category 14 where he has to talk to customer aspect. And that aspect cannot be fulfilled without seeing that document. That's how, Manish, you will know. Answer 1 and 2 is given. Third part, do people audit it? Yes. Under BRSR, it is a requirement. Under certain compliance authority, it is a requirement that you get certified. However, companies like large company, which are leaders in their area, they do voluntary. Okay, they go and get certified. And that auditor had that checklist under each category, and they will go and check. And they will come to know which part you are hiding, because he has an industry knowledge as well, right? He's working with PNG. Tide ki bhi sir wahi dekh ke aa raha hai, so he knows what he need to check here. And he will ask them that question. If you are trying to hide, they will not give them the certificate. As simple as that. And then their investor, stakeholder will start shouting, are they giving me Bonvita? You know the Bonvita story. How many of you know another product, a very famous product in India for health drink, which is promoted as a health drink, suddenly has came crashing down? The name was
was the Complan.
Complan, Bonvita, all three of them.
Complan का बड़ा story था उसमें किसी ने some fellow had done a case कि मैं इतने सालों से consume कर रहा हूँ and I have felt nothing. So then the entire story
That is
started.
one side of a story. The second side of a story is much worse. There is a YouTuber who comes from the industry, means he knows everything, and he has done a viral videos on the basis of which even the company has sued him. And then he has taken it back, his videos. Okay. And still, but still he is allowed to say his words and he's saying it. And the massive problem was the Bonvita sale was dropped by 60%. 60% in a month. People have stopped consuming it after watching that video because it has a worse material and which you do not need as a body. So anyway, I'm just saying that consumer, this is again a consumer awareness because we do not know what is there in that chemical, right? The name is written, but what is there? What is the good part of it? What is the bad part of it? Does my body needs it, etc., etc.? We don't know. And that is why it is recommended, read the labels, read the papers. But let's not get digress from our discussion. Discussion watch, which Manish asked 3 questions. First question I answered him, very simple. Please understand, there are frameworks which are in place, which you use and which requires you to be transparent, voluntary. You have to be. And if you are not transparent, you have missed that principle and you are not in compliance with that particular framework. Be it GHG protocol, be it GRI, be it CSRD, whatever. Second, I told you that there is a way to find it out. And way to find it out is in the detail of that framework. GRI has 406, 403. In that topic standard, they have defined what I need to check. And that check is related to my consumer uses. To find that data, where you will find in the leaflets, SOPs of company, the chemical which company is using, etc., will give you that indication how consumer is using and how much of carbon they are emitting and how much of carbon, if they are emitting, how much of that will come into your scope 3. Clear?
Vivek ji. Vivek
Got
sir.
it, sir.
Good.
Vivek sir.
GG, please, sir. Please.
Relatively, companies have a more responsibility if the emissions in the scope 1 category are more as compared to 3. So do companies have a tendencies कि scope 3 में डाल दो जान छूट जाएगी थोड़ा कम हो जाएगा liability. Is it so?
That is what I was telling from the beginning. It is a voluntary requirement. जान छूट जाएगा कर रहे हैं लोग. Few people do. Of course, countries like India, etc., they do not want to be in negative news, right? But
No. Many of the big companies I have seen doing in the past. I have read. You read? No, start reading the BRSR report of the many companies. You will
they have
come
done in past.
scope 3 में बहुत डाल देते हैं आजकल.
But यही हमारा responsibility होता है as a advisor to them, as a employee to them.
Yes. Auditor
To tell
keep on
them
saying वो कहता रहता है लेकिन लोग डालते हैं because management also.
लेकिन look, this has no financial implication other than the non-financial implication. So we need to do the cost benefit of that, put it in front of the board of directors, and then let the board of directors decide it. At least you did your job. If they are doing it, let them do it. That's why I'm telling you why people need to learn GHG accounting. They have to learn because there is a fraud happening. There is a greenwashing happening. And
Now the
companies doing
carbon
it at the board
accounting.
level. They are
Now
doing
the
it at the
carbon
board level.
accounting has come. Now the money has been correlated with this. Maybe now the scenario may change.
It has to change because there is a compliance. Right now, BRSR has not announced how they will penalize you, right? The government provisions, but CSRD has announced there is a 9-year jail term and people have gone in jail by doing ecocides. There is another blog on our website. Please go and check. Ecocides has a jail provision of 10 years.
The regulatory mechanisms are not in place because the SEBI ने अभी 1 साल में access का अपना software बनाया.
That's how it percolates. International में, if Europe has done, Africa, Presley will follow, India will follow, Middle East will follow, maybe with a gestation period or with a delay of 2 to 5 years. But it has to be followed because you have to export, right? Eventually, everybody wants to export. So
things are going to change with the BRSR. Now the reports, I think Ramesh ji will also understand and you will also appreciate that now the XML formats have been created and the people have to fill in. The way in the income tax we used to do. Now everything is getting analyzed and reviewed. Maybe once these data that we are submitting in the BRSR will get reviewed, then more and more things will be highlighted. Then the company will be
I
responsible.
completely agree with you, and it is happening. That's what I'm saying. The regulation will catch up, and once it will catch up, it will penalize you. And that's the cost benefit analysis we need to tell as a sustainability officer, sustainability advisors, right? Decision remains with the board. There is no doubt about it. But it is our duty to make sure that we have given the enough input for the board to decide whether it is right, or ethics committee, or to the ESG committee for them to decide. Clear? With that, we come to end of the discussion relating to understanding of specifically carbon accounting. Now let's go into the framework. Here we are going to cover today two frameworks. Today looks difficult, but I will try to do another 15 minutes. I have a hard stop at 12:55. We will stop at 12:45. So let me cover at least GHG. We will try to cover two basic stuff. One is the GHG protocol, and the second one is we will look into ISO 14064. So of course, you know about all this now, core component of the Paris Agreement, collective effort, national ownership, iterative process. If you have understood that, that is a major one, which we have covered yesterday on Paris Agreement and NDC. The another important one is United Nations EPA Greenhouse Gas Reporting Program, which is in short called GHGRP program, under which you again do carbon accounting based on US companies. So whatever US companies are there, you use this particular, definitely you use this, and then you can use GHG protocol. Everybody loves to use GHG protocol because audience is world over. If you are using country level, then at least you are covering your compliances requirement, and you are covering also your accounting requirement. So United States has EPA, which is United States Environmental Protection Agency, in short EPA, which was formed in 2009. Okay, so that point in time, after 2007, they realized that they should have their own country carbon accounting provisions, and they have really done well, because some of their report, their factor annexures, we use it for the even in GHG protocol. So we take those data, the factor data on certain item, and apply it in GHG protocol. So they have been established in 2009, and they required large resources for greenhouse gas emission to report their annual GHG emission. Specifically, all the companies which has a headquarter in US, they try to use GHGRP, and it covers, their regulation covers power plants. Like in India, I told you, right? Energy is the major one, because CEA is the authority under Ministry of Energy and Forest. I think they are together. So that ministries controls this particular part, CEA operation. And in India, we look into the energy side. In US, they look into power plants, of course, energy, oil and gas extraction, so exploration of oil and gas, manufacturing, and many more. So they cover most of the area. That's why a lot of people use those factors of USA whenever they do calculation, even in India. Okay, because India में केवल वो energy वाला part you can cover it through CA factors. Rest of the part is always doubtful. So you always go to the international factor providers. Again, what is factor, what is provider, we will discuss it later. Don't worry. Key feature of GHGRP, which is Greenhouse Gas Reporting Program of United States, is it is a mandatory for facility which is emitting 25,000 metric tons of carbon dioxide equivalent. So if you are emitting, your facility is emitting above this amount of carbon dioxide equivalent, you need to report under GHGRP. So it's a mandatory requirement, first. Second, it promotes transparency and helps a data-driven decision-making, that where to control, what are my carbon hotspots, etc. Third, it supports the EPA regulatory program, which is as a national level, they have decided their program. And that program tracking can happen once the corporates will start reporting to it. Yeah. And because cap and trade also is linked to it. In America, if you do the trading of your climate certificate, you need to use EPA guidelines. That's why GHGRP is a very important protocol, you can say, or framework for carbon accounting in USA. Impact is, of course, it drives the corporate accountability in GHG mission, and also it enhances the public knowledge of GHG sources in United States. Then comes the European Union, which is European Emission Trading System. Of course, it's a carbon trading platform, but they also have their own, a GHG accounting framework, which you need to refer. Even though you are using DEFRA factors, you can always come back and look into ETS as well, because eventually you are selling in the European trading system. This is the first, by the way, Europe is the leader in all climate action side. They are the leader. Okay. So the world, ETS is the world first carbon market. Okay. Major carbon market, which really operated at professional level. And they are sometimes selling carbon credit at $150. So somewhere it starts from $70 because different country has a different kind of framework. So 27 countries are there in Europe. So each of them plus 2, which is Turkey and Ukraine, I believe. All these are reporting under Europe, and they have a different kind of structure. So the sale price ranges from $70 to $150, right? Why? Because this is most mature system right now. It has been launched in 2005. And the purpose for launch was cap and trade GHG emission. So what is cap and trade? We will learn in carbon credit system, okay, in later classes. And this is applicable to all EU members. What is the key feature? It provides a cap that each company should not exceed particular amount of carbon emission. If they do so, then they have to trade. They have to buy it. Yeah. If they have not consumed the cap which has been given, say 20,000 metric ton is a cap given to a cement company in Ukraine. Okay, that company has only emitted carbon which was 15,000 in that year. So he left with 5,000, right? That's the amount he will sell in market because he will get $50 per ton. Are you with me? This is what cap and trade is. So this setting up happens because of the ETS, ETS guideline and ETS regulations. Company receives a purchase of emission allowances. So they receive every year. And by the way, every year it decreases. Remember another fundamental of cap and trade? It doesn't remain same for all companies all the time. It reduces. Ultimate aim is that no company should emit carbon. And if they are emitting, they should purchase it from somewhere else. So gradually it reduces the cap over a period of time to lower total emission. And impact is, of course, this procedure of ETS system incentivizes people to reduce their emission, remain below the carbon cap which has been given so that company can make money. And if you are exceeding, try to reduce it. And it has an impact of 35% in power sector. The consumption has reduced, and the European system has helped that. India has a carbon offset program. So Tripti, offset is a word used in carbon credit program of India, which is called carbon offset program. In July 2023, this program has officially been adopted. Before that also we had, but that system was scrapped. It didn't work. A lot of people have those credit papers still with them in millions of rupees, yeah, and useless now, completely useless of those years. So now in 2023, government has brought in more pragmatic offset program, which is based on the Paris Agreement along with the Kyoto Protocol requirements. And this is under Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change. Sorry, Ministry of Environment, Forest and Climate Change, MOEFCC. This is the body who has developed this program. They implemented it. Indian Carbon Offset Program, which supports any project which is you are planning to create for reducing the greenhouse gas emission. Give me an example. What do you think about which project will come under this purview? Anyone, try it.
Your solar
Absolutely, you are right, Rajniti. Perfect. Solar, if somebody is doing solar farm,
power
he can
plant.
apply for a carbon credit, and they will be part of.
विवेक जी, ये जो आजकल सोलर ऊपर लग रहे हैं सेल्स वगैरह घरों के ऊपर
Correct.
प्लास्टिक वाला, वो भी इसी में ही
You
आएगा।
can apply individually also. You can
सेल
apply.
करता है ये काम।
Absolutely, you can apply, but of course you are using it for your own purpose and selling it again into the system So there is no carbon offsetting. You are already making money out of it, right? That's why people do not get the credit. But if you are not using it for your own purpose and it is you are doing it for somebody else in your house, then in that case, you can get the carbon credit. And that comes into clean development mechanism, which is developed by Kyoto Protocol.
Wait. If you have to get the carbon credit, you should not be making profit out of it. That's it. That's the story.
Of course, otherwise, if you are doing it already, you got the credit, right?
You are making profit, so you will not get the numbers also.
So that person who purchased it already has paid you. So why somebody give you another certificate and another money for it? It's as simple as that. Second is key feature. Of course, you can do it. Still, you can do it if you are selling it cheaper, like government purchase at 2 rupees. Where people are making money, I will tell you. If you are creating a solar farm where grid is applying at 20 rupees, Maharashtra में 20 रुपए per unit आती है. In Maharashtra, which is a state in India, Presley, people buy electricity at how much cents it will be? Around 30 cents dollar. 30 cents a dollar. They are buying electricity 1 unit. And in Delhi, it's free, nearly zero, right? In Bangalore also, it is for few people, it is zero. If you exceed 3,000 units, you need to pay. So there is a huge range. So for example, I'm just taking Maharashtra as example, where people are paying for industrial use 18 to 20 rupees or 30 cents, approximately 30 cents for 1 unit, while solar power plant has to sell at 2 rupees, which is 0.02 cents. You're seeing the difference? That difference you can claim under offset program. Are you with me?
You need to repeat it.
रजनी जी, महाराष्ट्र में 20 रुपए का इलेक्ट्रिसिटी मिलता है if you take from the grid, which is mostly carbon, means mostly fossil fuel generated है, coal से आता है, coal thermal plant से आता है, right? But if I'm not buying that and somebody has created a solar farm and he's supplying to the grid, he's supplying at what rate? 2 rupees. So if I am buying from that grid, which is a solar power plant grid, 2 rupees, company will get the differential as the carbon offset. Of course, it's not as simple as what I am talking. It requires a lot of paper trail and paper procedure. There are a lot of energy loss as well.
Minus 0.2.
मतलब 0.2 मैंने सेंट्स में बोला, 2 रुपए पे गवर्नमेंट खरीदती है, 2 से 3 रुपया ऑन एन एवरेज मैक्सिमम.
दोनों का डिफरेंस होगा, वही क्लेम कर सकते हैं.
वही क्लेम कर सकते हो, वो उसमें भी बहुत सारे लॉसेस होते हैं, तो एक डिफरेंशियल अमाउंट का आपको कार्बन क्रेडिट मिल सकता है.
ओके.
ठीक है. So key feature is that, of course, it is under National Action Plan for Climate Change, which government has introduced to collect the NDC's achievements, and it encourages a cost-effective emissions and expands the renewable energy. Here comes the second case study. Of course, I have not given you guys the second case study, which I will post it now because you were given overwhelming information in the group. But today we will send you the Tesla case as well, and we'll try to cover it as well tomorrow. And with this, I want to stop. But only one thing I want to remember here is see the green lines on this screen. You see that? That is a revenue which Tesla is making every quarter. Every 3 महीने में, they are earning around $500 million just by those credits which are getting developed by EPA GHG system or European Union ETS system. This is additional revenue which Tesla is realizing. And that's why team in CRISIL, it's not team in CRISIL, people whom I was sitting yesterday were little bit optimistic that Mr. Musk will do a justice to the climate action and may suggest something right to Mr. Trump, and Trump will be little relaxed. Clear? Read the case study tomorrow. Everybody has to present the case study at least either on slide or just from your notes. But everybody is going to do that. Whoever is listening recording, please make a note of that as well. Tomorrow, when we will have the session at 7 o'clock in evening, India time, at that point in time, first we will have this case study briefing. What have you understood? What is the benefit? Why Tesla is earning so much, and what is the process for the same? Clear? With that, tomorrow.
There is an evening session too today.
Tomorrow, not today, not today.
Okay.
Tomorrow. So you will have enough time to read and come back. And tomorrow when we will come back, we will start with International GHG Accounting Framework, where focus will be GHG protocol and ISO 14064. Why they are different, what is the purpose, how they work, what are the requirements, what is the history behind it, how they are different, how they are similar, what are the different connotation there, why people use GHG, why people use ISO, why we are training you on GHG protocol. All that we will establish in next 2 hours in tomorrow's session. Take care. Wish you a happy day and see you tomorrow in evening. Any question you have? Otherwise, I will stop the session.
Let us go through once again what you